Hi. In the series of the financial videos which we have been seeing about the bank and the customers, today we will be seeing very important three documents which customers are very frequently using when they enter into the bank premises. One is pay-in slip, the second one is the checkbook, the third one is the passbook. So we will be seeing the implications of each one of these. So I'm not going to go into the details of the entries being made into each of these. This we would have seen in negotiable instrument. But what I will be informing you is about the case laws, certain case laws which has been decreed in India towards filling and following these procedural aspects of pay-in slips, checks and especially the passbooks. The word operate in relation to a bank account means that the customer deposits further sums of money and checks etc. into the bank account and withdraws money according to his need or convenience. It can be in the form of cash or transfer within the same bank or to a different bank through clearing check. These are the three modes are available. So pay-in slips are being used when they come and deposit in the bank either the cash or the checks to the credit of another customer. So this pay-in slips contains a perforated counterfoil to be filled in by the depositor on both the sides. Some banks use a carbonated copy wherein the perforated forms will not be available. So usually it includes information relating to the date of the deposit, name of the account number, amount that is getting deposited and the check number in case check is being given, and down below there will be a signature of the account holder will be there, the person who is depositing. So a pay-in slip will have that, and in the case of cash slips, cashier's signature also will be there. Now we have check drop boxes in many banks. So certain banks do not give the counterfoil back to the customer, but counterfoil signing and the countersigning and affixing the seal is important at the time of acceptance of either cash or a check. So cash is also nowadays being deposited in the machines which is kept outside in the form of recycler or bulk note acceptor, BNA they call, can accept cash into the machine. In that case, the slip comes out of having deposited the cash in the machine. Banks are at present maintaining drop boxes wherein the checks for collection may be dropped into the box by the customer. So checkbook, it contains blank forms of checks which are used as an instrument to withdraw money from the bank. A withdrawal form is also available that should be accompanied by a passbook in certain banks. But many of the banks have switched over to the checkbook system, check leaf system than a withdrawal form system. So what is a passbook? The third parameter, which has more relevance in today's video. It's a small handy book issued by the banker to his customer to having recorded all the dealings between them. The purpose of issuing a passbook to a customer is to acquaint the customer periodically with the state of affairs of his account with the bank. As it passes from the hands of the customer to the banker and vice versa, it is called a passbook. In business, there will be more transactions and hence passbooks are nowadays done away with and statement of account is being issued. So this will help them to tally with their own cash books. The following points are important in this connection. Point number 1. Entries in the passbook are to be recorded by the official of the bank and must bear the initials of the accountant. The customer should not write or enter anything by himself into the passbook. Whenever the banker sends a passbook to the customer, it must show updated entries in that. Point number 3, if the passbook is lost by the customer, a duplicate passbook must be given by the banker, mentioning on the top of it as duplicate. Point number 4, in case of a savings bank account, the passbook must accompany the withdrawal form every time when money is being withdrawn through a withdrawal form. And as I mentioned earlier, nowadays it's a check system. So when check is being given, the passbook is not insisted upon. Some banks give statement of account periodically. It may be fortnightly, monthly or quarterly basis, depending on the decisions being taken by individual banks. Reserve Bank of India has exhorted banks to invariably offer passbook to all their savings bank account holders. They may issue statement of account also if the customer so desires. They are also advised not to charge cost of providing the passbook or statements to the customer. So these are mandated by RBI. Operation in the bank account by old, sick, incapacitated customers, how will we entertain in the bank? In November 1998, Reserve Bank of India prescribed the following procedures. Point number 1. In case of a customer who is too ill to sign a check, cannot be physically present in the bank to withdraw money from the bank account, but can put his thumb impression on the check or withdrawal form, the thumb impression be identified by 2 independent witnesses known to the bank. One of them should be a responsible bank official. So this is point number 1. Point number 2. In case of a customer who is unable to put his thumb impression on the check or withdrawal form due to certain physical defect, incapability, the bank should obtain a mark on the check or withdrawal form. This mark should be identified by 2 independent witnesses, one of whom should be a responsible bank official. The customer may be asked to indicate to the bank the name of the person who would withdraw the amount from the bank. This person should also be identified by 2 independent witnesses. He should be asked to furnish his signature to the bank. So we will see the legal aspects of entries made in the passbook. The effects of entries to the advantage of the customer due to omission of any debit entry or addition of 2 entries in the credit side. If the passbook shows a higher balance and the customer withdraws such balance, treating it as his own fund and spends it away, the banker shall not be entitled to recover such amount wrongly paid to the customer. Very valid point, you should remember that. And next point on this, the customer acted in such a manner relying on the correctness of the balance shown in the passbook and I had no knowledge of the mistakes therein. And substantiation is another point. He altered his position by spending the same. So this benefit has been given to the customer in various judgments. In case the customer doesn't know that his money doesn't belong to him and he spends based on the true spirit of the balances being disclosed by the bank, he might think that he would have omitted or deposited money. That is reflecting now, and hence he has spent it. The right of spending is on him, and hence the customer is absolved of this. Banker will be liable on this. The decision of the Madras High Court on Oakley Bowden and Co. versus the Indian Bank Limited is being quoted on this. Let me narrate the case here. The Guntur branch of the bank, this Indian bank, received 2 deposits for the credit of the company in 1952. Each of these credits was advised by telegram. In those days, we had a system called telegram that used to come to the bank, and it will have a cryptic codes. Bank will decode it and then give the credit to the bank account. Through telegram also, money transfer used to happen. the Guntur branch to the head office, which credited the account of the company accordingly. The very same two credits were advised by the Guntur branch to the head office by ordinary post also. So one is through telegram they have sent, the other through ordinary post they have sent the information. The head office did not apparently realize that two credits advised by the post related to the identical credits covered by the telegram. So they thought the one which has come through letter also is a different credit, and they given the credit second time to the customer. The mistake was detected by the bank after 2 years, 1954. Thereafter it filed a suit against the company for the recovery of the amount covered by the duplicate credit entry. The company in the meanwhile settled its accounts with the customers at Guntur on the basis of these entries communicated to it by the bank. Company therefore raised the point that bank has stopped from claiming that two entries were duplicate entries. So trial court and the first appellate court held that company had the means of knowledge and therefore every opportunity to know the real position, and therefore it could not plead estoppel against the bank. It could not plead guilty. So the trial court and appellate court said of the view that it was possible for the company to have detected the duplicate entry on perusal of the accounts. On appeal, the Madras High Court held, generally speaking, a bank owes a duty to its customer to maintain proper and accurate accounts of credits and debits. The court observed that if the company had even cursorily scrutinized the periodic statements received by it from its two customers, it would have detected that two of the credits entries were in fact only duplicate. Court held that company was negligent in scrutinizing the account and that it had constructive notice of the duplicate entries, and therefore it could not raise the plea. It was held that bank could recover the amounts in question from the company. So this has gone in favor of the bank. So what is the effect of customer signing the confirmation slips? The passbook itself is not a conclusive proof of a settled account. Banks nowadays periodically issue to the customers confirmation slips which give the balance in the account as on given date. So the customer signs it and sends it back to the bank for their records. So effect of wrong entries in favor of the banker. When a credit entry has been totally omitted or its figure has been wrongly stated or any debit entry has been erroneously made into the account of the customer, such entries are favorable to the banker and against the customer. In case the customer is entitled to get the mistake rectified as soon as he happens to detect it. This right of the customer does not lapse even if he returns the passbook without raising objection regarding any entry, or he remains silent after the receipt of the passbook, because as already noted, the customer is not bound to examine the passbook periodically and regularly. He is entitled to recover the amount wrongly debited to or omitted by the bank on these cases. The right of the customer to get the mistake rectified is however subjected to one limitation. What is that? If the customer comes to know about the forgery in the cheque and he does not inform the bank, it will constitute to be a negligence on his part. Customer will therefore not be entitled to recover the amount paid by the banker on a forgery cheque. So, citing the facts of the case, High Court held that corporation was aware of the fraud. So what is the fraud? There was a Canara Bank and Canara Sales Corporation others. These two entities were there. The Mysore High Court held that there was no duty on the part of the customer to examine his passbook. This is the most important case that has happened. The passbook is not scrutinized by the company. The High Court observed that while considering the fact of silence or omission to speak, it has been seen whether there was any occasion for words and any reasonable explanation for the silence. Citing the facts of the case, High Court held that the corporation was not aware of the fraud which has happened, that is, forgery by the Chief Accounts Officer of the signature of the Managing Director on 42 checks favoring himself. So until it is found, it could not be stated that it was negligent in bringing the forgery of the notices to the bank. The High Court also held that an implied contract as to settlement of account does not arise between a customer and his banker merely by reason of the banker sending the passbook to the customer with the accounts written up and the customer failing to point out any irregularities therein. The bank filed an appeal before the Supreme Court and contested, and after reasonable opportunity was given to the customer to examine the bank's statements. So inaction for continuously long period cannot by itself afford a satisfactory ground for the bank to escape the liability. The court held there was no duty for a customer to inform the bank of fraud committed on him, of which he was unaware. Nor can inaction for a reasonably long time is in not discovering fraud or irregularity be made a defense to defeat a customer's inaction or loss. So in this case, so what has happened is the chief accounts officer has signed as MD on close to 42 checks and defrauded the bank. The bank did not notice the signature difference and the entries were made in the passbook and given to them. That also could not be located by them. But then court held that bank will be held responsible because the signature of forged instrument is paid by the bank. So these are the cases pertaining to passbook. So we have seen two cases, one which went in favor of the bank, the one which went against the bank. So what is being seen by the court of law is whether any malified intention is there in making the entry either from the bank side or from the customer side. Customers not informing the bank about a fraud that has happened, whether without the knowledge of the company themselves, will be absolved from the responsibility and hence bank has to pay. In case the customer is aware of the fraud that has happened and then any transaction happening after that will not be entertained as a settlement in case those kind of checks are passed by the bank. So the bankers have to be doubly careful while entering the entries in the passbook. Now in the statement of accounts, all the transactions that is being raised by the customer, checks have to be scrutinized properly, signatures have to be properly vetted, and if there are mandate for either or two signatures together, both the signatures have been properly scanned, verified, and then only the instruments have to be passed. So bankers have to be very cautious about any entries that is being done in the passbook and statement of accounts. I hope the sensitivity of the information being shared on the passbook is conveyed through this video, and kindly make this information available to the young bankers and the importance of compliance in banking. Thank you very much for patiently watching. Any comment, please put it in the description column. Bye bye.